OConnell. Gene has been on a journey of healing and recovery for many, many years. He's got an amazing story. Wish I had time to let you hear his story. His material's on the table in the back behind the clock or out on the lobby on the table. But he's going to share with us today some part of his journey and his struggle of recovery. And this is the Recovery Church on the Peninsula, and it's what we're here and what we're doing. This message I'm telling you today is awesome. And if you got some friends that are struggling, you can text them now and tell them we're live on Facebook, right, Mike? We're live on Facebook. So if you got friends at home, pull out your phone and text them and say, hey, get on Facebook and tune in to Sold Out in the Church of God Facebook page right now, because you need to hear this message. I'm telling you, it is absolutely life-changing, and I'm honored. I met Gene at Beauty for Ashes conference in Anchorage about 7 years ago. We've become very good friends, and God's doing an amazing thing. I think God's doing some stuff in Gene. Gene don't even know. I'm just saying. And so, Gene, I'm blessed to have you as a friend. Come on, man, and share your heart with us today.
Did this remote?
Oh, you want this right here?
Yes, sir.
That might help.
Good morning. Wow, you guys are a little bit more cheery than the first crowd. That first crowd, it was half asleep. I had to wake them up. No, I'm just kidding you. So this morning we're going to talk about addiction. And I've been working in recovery since 1983, based on my own journey. And so you'll hear bits and pieces of my journey as I teach, but I really want to hit on, and I'm going to center in on, what is at the center of addiction. And it may not be your struggle. Maybe you don't struggle with addiction, but you know someone who does. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is to actually start thinking about how this might apply to how you touch others and work with others. Because if you don't understand how to help, you're going to be one of the greatest hindrances to their healing. So this is really important, and so we're going to kind of dive right in. And so with that, I'm going to look at the thing that is the foundational principle for all we deal with, is understanding what is it that we need, what is it that brings life. So I'm going to set the foundation, and then we'll start from there. The scripture teaches that thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. In all the commandments within the scriptures, all of those commandments, every bit of those hang on those two commandments. And that what they are relational. That everything about life is relationships. Can you say everything about life is relationships?
Everything about life is relationships.
Restoration and healing is about relationships. If you can get that into your soul and begin to learn your journey of how you heal your relationships, how you build healthy intimacy, you will restore the world you're in. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things that get in the way of that, and we're going to talk about that. But first of all, knowing that I have a relationship with God and I have a relationship with you. They're not separable. That as I connect this way, and I have a lot of barriers with my relationship with God, because at 6 years old I was sexually abused, and had sexual abuse in my life. I know that God is everywhere at all times, and why would God stand by and allow me to be sexually abused? If I saw somebody that I love being sexually abused, I'd be the first man in there to beat the crap out of them. Sorry, excuse me. Good. Forgive me, Lord, for that word. No. So reality is that how could I feel? I didn't feel that God really cared because He didn't step in. And so for me, I had a really difficult time doing this number with God because I didn't trust Him. And it's taken me a long time in my journey to even heal this way before I could even begin to heal this way. But for many, I've heard over and over again is yeah, I have this great relationship with God. It's just with Christians I don't really care much about. And I'm going to say to you right now that you don't have a great relationship with God if it's not playing out this way. They're inseparable. They are one and the same. If you have a great relationship with God, it will play out in your relationships with one another. So what happens is, in understanding our recovery and what is addiction, is knowing that it's really centered out of relationships that are broken. So if life comes from relationship, death comes from broken relationship. I heard somebody tell a story one time that in his backyard the vine would grow, and it was just beautiful, he said, but every year it would get overgrown and it'd start wrapping itself around the tree, and every time it'd do that, it started killing the life out of his beautiful tree. So he'd have to get up there, get a ladder, and unwind that vine all the way down and get it off of there so that the tree could grow. And in one year he thought, man, this is just very, very hard to do, and it takes a lot of time. I wonder if there's a better way. And all of a sudden it just came to him, well, if I just cut the vine at the bottom of the tree, it won't have to climb up the tree. It will cut the vine, it will cut the life out, and the vine will die on its own, and it won't be an issue. Hear this. Life is about connection. When there's no connection, there's no life. So when we look at addiction, addiction is a way to replace what I'm not getting in connection. That's a really simple way of saying it. It's a much more complicated to address. We're going to dig in. You guys ready? Okay, cool. So, well, let's do this. Then we come back. This cartoon I love because it says, once again, I want to stress the story that I just related during my sermon is purely fictional and is no way based upon anyone here in the congregation. But you can see the person, everybody's looking at that one person as they are in the middle. And the reason why addictions flourish is because there's so much judgment and so much fear that if I share what I really struggle with, I'm going to be mocked, shamed, judged, and thrown out the door. Amen. And that is the number one barrier to someone actually making change, because they don't feel comfortable being who they are. I have no desire to put false hope in you. I have no desire to tell you that just if you just white knuckle it, if you just do it strong, this time around when you realize that it's time to stop, that I'm just going to do it harder this time, I'm going to do more this time, I'm going to stop that, I'm just going to put more energy to it. That somehow if you just get more willpower, you're going to stop this thing. I'm going to tell you now, willpower has nothing to do with it. Amen. Real change comes when we deal with the life source of why the addiction exists. If we deal with the root, the fruits go away. So if you look at the tree that we're looking at right now, the fruits represent behaviors. They represent the result of something deeper. I can certainly, if I don't like the behavior, if I don't like the fruit, I can certainly cut the branch off and it will look good for a season. But it will only be for a season, because the very life that brought that branch and that fruit about to begin with still exists. So when I prune something, I'm not really getting rid of behavior. All I'm doing is delaying it. So it looks good for a season, but when it comes back, and it will come back, it comes back with more strength and more struggle, because the life that was there that brought it about is still existing. So in our life, we can spend our entire life in the addictive struggle by trying to stop the destructive behavior. It doesn't matter whether that's drugs. It doesn't matter whether it's alcohol or sex or pornography. It doesn't matter whether it's gambling or going to church. Ouch. Because anything that you use to replace relationship is addiction. Now I know I'm getting a little more closer to home, because it isn't just, all we tend to do is look at the ones who are struggling with drugs and with alcohol, or someone who is struggling with sex or food. We look at them and go, wow, they got an addiction. Addictions are far deeper than that. And so we want to address what's really going on. And so with that, I want to help you understand two things. This is vital. Absolutely vital to understanding how to change what's going on in your world, or helping someone change. First of all, addiction is driven by two basic foundational things. The first one is there are real needs, legitimate, God-given needs that are being met in an unhealthy way. When we hear the story in John 4 about the woman at the well, this is going to be G. OConnell paraphrase, so forgive me, I might kind of cut it up a little bit, but the man is meeting this woman, or Jesus is meeting the woman at the well. It's in the middle of the day. It's hot. And no one goes to the well in the middle of the day. It's too hot. The only one that would go to the well in the middle of the day is a woman who's prostituting herself. She doesn't want to see anybody in the middle of the day. She don't want to run into anybody. She wants to be left alone. So she goes to the well, and who does she meet? Jesus. Now, paraphrase, Jesus basically says, give me a drink from the well. And she's thinking, why in the heck are you asking me? I'm a Samaritan. I'm considered in those days, a Samaritan was considered a dog. They don't relate with Jews. Jews don't talk to them. Jews were considered better. And so here's this woman going, what the heck are you asking me for a drink? And so she's already struggling with why would you even approach me? And Jesus is saying to her after the conversation, where is your husband? And she says, well, he's back I've been with 5 men, and the man I'm with, she's talking back and forth about all these men that she's been with, and all the thing is, here's Jesus going, well, the man that you're with is not even your husband. And she's going, how the heck does he know that? I didn't tell him that. Bottom line in all this is Jesus says to her, the well that you're drawing from, you're going to always thirst. But he wasn't just talking about the water. He says, the well that I give, you will never thirst again. You see, no matter how many men she was with, it's never going to quench the thirst. No matter how many women that a man might be with, it's not going to quench the thirst. No matter how much drugs, no matter how much alcohol, no matter how much sex, no matter how much food, no matter what I take in to replace the relationship, it's never going to fill the need. Why? Because its relationship is the need, not the substance. No object, nothing that I can control will ever meet the need internally. Amen. It takes a human being, it takes a God to create that He was created for. That we have a relationship this way and we have a relationship this way. And it's in that my life is fulfilled. And nothing replaces that. Wow. Awesome. So I have a strategy to meet that need, but I don't know how to meet it, because if I am real, and I'll get to this in a little bit, if I truly allow someone into my life, I'm just going to get hurt again. So I'm going to do this the safe way. I'm not going to have a relationship where I can be hurt or rejected or used again. I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to replace it with something I can control that allows me to stay in control, where I don't get rejected, I don't get hurt, I can get my needs met without ever risking myself emotionally. I stay at distant in relationship, and reality is that it doesn't replace relationships. So that means that I continually go back for more and more and more, trying to meet that need, but only I still thirst. Then we have the pain, unprocessed things that have happened to us, things that hurt, wounds that we carry, losses that we've experienced. How many of you experience a loss of relationship, either through divorce or through abandonment or through death, where we don't know how to process? It's painful, it's hard, it hurts. And we carry it inside and we don't know what to do with it. And the more pain there's there, the more pain we carry, the more drug that's required to cover it. So the greater the struggle with drug means the greater pain that I'm covering. It doesn't mean that I'm a pervert or a weirdo or a weak person just because I'm fully blown into a drug addiction. And all it means is I'm a person in great pain. Wow. So, for me, just thinking about my own self, I was sexually abused at 6 by a babysitter who was in the church. She was 6 years older than I was. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to communicate it. And inside, here's this young girl who's giving me attention, who's saying that I'm important to her, I'm handsome, that she cares about me. And there's that, wow, that feels good, / I feel dirty, I feel soiled, I feel damaged. I feel like nobody would ever want to see that dirty little boy who just is all yucky because of what had happened. And so shame and pleasure were combined. And therefore my first sexual experience was what of shame and pleasure. Do I feel comfortable with that? No, I don't know who to tell. How do I talk about that? Who do I talk to? And so instead I stuffed it. And that sexual abuse happened for over 6 months or a year with that babysitter. And I was abused at 9 by an older boy sexually. And I was abused again at 12 by an older boy sexually. And so all of that pain just gets stuffed inside. All that stuff just gets stuffed. Where does that go? If I stuff it, where is it going? It's stuffing inside. It's still there. Amen. Unless I learn and gain the tools on how to work through pain, then I use the drug. I use the object. I use the chemical. I use the way of getting high, the mood altering, so I don't have to feel. And no amount of energy will change that unless I deal with the wound. Let me kind of go at this even a little bit more, because what I want to do is I will dive into, first of all, the needs and the longings. The need. Every one of us needs intimacy. I cannot stress this strong enough. One of the greatest lies of our culture is that men's need is sex and women's need is intimacy. That's baloney. It's nowhere to be found in Scripture. We have taken the toxic ideas of our culture, we've put spiritual language around it, and we've made it okay. And what that does is it puts the woman in an unbelievable prison within marriage, because if it is his need, if sex is the need, then it's required to have that need met. If you're a partner and sex is not, if that's his need, then you're his partner. You're supposed to help work with each other to meet those needs. And you would not be a very good partner if you weren't meeting them. But I'll tell you right now, sex is not the need. In fact, sex is not even a need. What is the need is for both male and female is to be received, to be known, to be accepted and known. Let me look at me. Into me see. That you see into my life, you see me for who I am, my weaknesses, my fears, my struggles, my pain. You see me, you really see me, and you accept me, you embrace me, you know me. And you're not going anywhere. And if two people can actually have that kind of relationship where you really truly know each other, that there is no question mark about what's going on, there's total intimacy, that you see each other and accept each other, that whole feeling of, wow, this person knows me and they accept me, that's what we're celebrating. So sex, healthy sexuality, healthy sex is based on the celebration of intimacy. The other way around, it doesn't work. Sex is not intimacy. They're not the same thing. I can have sex with someone who wakes himself wide open to me physically and have experience there and still not know anything about them. And that kind of sex is empty because it's not relational. And so therefore, for me in my life, I went to prostitute after prostitute, strip club after strip club, pornography image after pornography image, trying to fill the void. But none of those images ever filled the void. All it did was create even a deeper angst inside my soul. Amen. Intimacy is the need. Intimacy is the driver. And when we think about it, we're starving on the inside. You see that little child is just like 50 feet away from a table to eat, but the child can't get there. And the child is starving to death and is about to die. That is exactly where many of us are emotionally and spiritually. We have the smorgasbord right in front of us, literally feet away. People are right there that we could open up to and let in, but we won't do it. And so we're dying on the inside, and the quick fix is to do the substance, is to run to the substance. 1 Corinthians 13:8 says, "For the love of money corrupts the mind, and the love of Our greatest needs are a father's love. Both a boy and a girl wants to have a father in their life that loves them and cares for them and shows them what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. And to actually, the woman, the little girl growing up needs to know she's cherished and loved and special. The boy needs to know what it looks like to be a man, to actually have a father care about him. And his whole identity is wrapped up in how his father treats him. That when we have a relationship, there's no relationship with the father, or it's a wounded relationship, it attacks even the very core of who we are. And the pain we carry, there's no easy way to handle it. Hurts. And if we're not given the tools to work through that, we carry that pain into our adult world. And the only way we cope with that pain is by doing the drugs rather than dealing with the pain. Mother's love, every one of us needs that. Every one of us longs for nurturing and connection and love. And if we didn't get that, if that was twisted or turned or wounded, it's painful and hurts. Every one of us wants a family. Boy, I can't tell you one of the greatest pains. You think about this for all of us. We're in Christmas time. You think that would be the greatest time in the world for everybody to celebrate. But Christmas time is the worst time in the world for someone who's struggling with a substance. Why? Because the family is during Christmas. It's where everybody gets together. And when you don't have that connection, boy, does that bring pain. And what do you do with it? If you stay in isolation and you don't talk about it and you don't work through it and you don't have the tools to face it, boy, I tell you what, it's a quick way to just kind of just push it out. And so the drug is my way of coping. And I go away and I just shove everybody out and I cope with it. I think I'm coping with it. But actually the drug begins to control. What I once thought I had control over, I lose. So, the issue of pain. And this, I really want to center in on this because this is where most of us actually misunderstand the issue. The issue of pain is big. We don't know how to decipher between someone who's struggling in a addictive pattern and some kind of, let me just say it this way, that someone has in a struggle that they can't seem to break, and then decipher that between that and a wound. Here's the deal. You cannot heal a bondage, and you cannot deliver a wound. They're two different processes. The Old Testament says that I come to heal the brokenhearted, and what? And set the captive free. Two different processes. And what we tend to do is we get into a church scenario, and I'm not saying this church because I'm really seeing some cool things happening here, but in most churches that I speak at and talk to, very few churches understand that, and they think that they can deliver your wound. They think that they can just give you the right words, they can pray the right prayer, or they can just put oil on your head and expect that the whole thing just goes away. Wounds need process. Wounds need time. And wounds are not something you can speak away. You see, I broke my leg when I was in my 20s, and I just shattered it. I was running to it was my daughter's birthday, and I had her little trike in my hand. It was her gift, and I was so excited. And I had my flip-flops on, and I'm in California, and I'm running across the lawn, and there was this broken main line, and the water was right at the top of the lawn, but I couldn't see it. And I'm running, and I hit that, and I went shoo, slid, and I rammed right into a wall and just shattered my leg. And they put screws and pins, and they said we're gonna probably have to fuse it. We don't know if we can fix it. And then I'm just going, no way, you're not doing that. You're not fusing it. I'm going to try to do the best I can with it. So, the bottom line, it took me a year before I could ever get back on my feet. That's how long. And at no time did anyone come to me and say, get back on the roof and go to work, you lazy bum. Why? They recognized I had a broken leg. They recognized that I had a wound. And it's very visible and very physical, so you can see it. What we don't recognize, if someone has gone through rape, you think that might be the same as a broken leg or a little bit worse emotionally? Do you think that that might be breaking something on the interior? You think that might be destroying something of value inside? Of course it does. And a severity of the wound means how long it takes for that wound to heal. And it needs process. It needs tender loving care. It needs professionals to handle it. And yet what we do is we tend to think that somehow we can tell someone to just heal from the wound of rape and think that they can just do it. They can just change and get over the memory. And yet the very thing of carrying the rape and the pain of that and hard to face it and not knowing what to do about it, and maybe their perpetrator's not taking any ownership and they're living with this alone and everybody thinks they're crazy, the only out they see is to use the drug. We don't go and look at our wounds, childhood in particular, as a way to find blame and put responsibility and say, oh wow, my dad did this or my mom did this or somebody wounded me, therefore I don't have any responsibility, I can just lay here and blame everybody. No, that's not what we're doing at all. We're doing it for the purpose of understanding where the wound started, who did it, who's responsible, dealing with the wound where things began, and identifying the problem and then moving from it and facing it and changing it and healing it so it no longer becomes an issue. Dr. Brandt wrote a book called Pain, the Gift That Nobody Wants. It's a really good book, but it's about this thick. So you got to read a lot of stuff to get there, to get to the heart of it. So I'll give it to you in a few words. He did research. He went overseas and he did research on lepers. And back in the days, they thought leprosy caused people to lose limbs, like fingers, noses, toes, feet. And he went and did lots of research amongst leper colonies to decide find out how leprosy played a role in the loss of limb. What they found out over a period of time is that leprosy actually doesn't cause loss. Actually, what leprosy does is take away pain. You can't feel anymore. So someone who reaches his hand into the fire does not feel the pain. And yet the very fact that he's got his hand in the fire is burning his flesh and he still doesn't feel it. So he has a story with this guy. They were at dinner time or lunchtime, and they were in this courtyard, and all these different various levels of leprosy where these people were standing in the courtyard, and this one guy in particular had broken his ankle, and it was really bad, severely broken, and he was walking with crutches, and the dinner bell rings, and so he's just like, he wants to be first in line, so he's just like trucking, he's moving. And all of a sudden he's realizing he's not getting there fast enough. He throws his crutches down and he runs across the rest of the courtyard. But in doing so, his ankle turns sideways. He's running with his bone going into the ground. I know that feels yucky and it sounds yucky. But rocks are going into it and he feels nothing. And then when he arrives at the front of the line, he's all happy. He has no clue what's going on down here. Pain is a gift to us. It tells us when something's wrong. And if we continue to blow past our pain and take a pill or do an addiction, what we're doing is the same thing as that guy running across the courtyard. Because the more you walk in wounding, the more damage you cause yourself. We live in a culture today that there's entire businesses making its living off the fact of telling you, just take a pill, just take this drug, get rid of your pain without ever looking at what's causing your pain. Just mask it. Just get over it. Go on. And I'm not anti-pill. I tell you, there's times I got headaches, I want a pill. Okay? So I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it is wrong to actually say that it's going to take care of your problem and never give you a solution for what is really going on. Amen. So when we do that, when we run in life, we're going at a pace, trying to survive, and we're hurting. And then the way to cope with our hurt is we're taking the drug. We're taking the substance. We're trying to survive, not knowing that there's a better way. The real question is What are you thirsty for? What are you hungry for? Think about your own struggles right now. And everyone has their own struggle, and there's no better than another. Right? Well, I do drugs I only do drugs part-time, but you do it full-time, you're worse. Get over that. The very fact that we're using something to replace relationship is killing us. And you don't realize it's killing the people around you. Because if you are only able to give what's inside of you, so if I'm empty, what do you think I'm giving those around me? You can't give what you don't have. And so we're in so much pain, and we're using so much of this addiction that we're not feeling the pain, that we're not even aware of the pain that's around us. We're not even aware that the pain that we're causing our children. We're not even in terms of the pain that we're causing our spouses. We're not even feeling the pain that it's causing your friends. Numbing out is not the answer. Taking a step and facing your pain and facing the needs that you have and learning new strategies to meet those needs and ways to cope with your pain and deal with your pain, heal your pain. Because what? Our Savior came to say, I came to heal the brokenhearted. There isn't one wound you carry that the cross can't heal over time. Amen. The enemy knows that if you stay in pain, he wins. Amen. If you ever come alive and you ever see that you're worth more than staying in your pain, boy, what a person you become. Amen. Redemption is unbelievable. You see, I'm going to shift this a little different than I did last time, because I think there's something I missed last time and I don't want to forget. You see, because I was in addiction for most of my young life, ever since the age of 12. Coping with the sexual abuse, coping with the lack of connection with my father, I spent a great deal of time hiding in pornography and sex. That was my drug of choice. I'd use it every time I felt rejection, every time I felt unloved, every time I felt lonely, every time I didn't feel like I mattered. I used that as a way of coping. And consuming an image is mood altering. There's all kinds of natural drugs released when you view an image. And that alone was pulling me out of my pain. The only problem is that what used to be good to move me from my pain no longer works. And addiction always requires more. I had no idea that it would affect me the way it affected me. I thought it was just my struggle. No one saw me consume. No one saw me buy the magazines. No one saw me looking at those magazines in private. No one saw that at all. But you guess what? The biggest thing that I didn't realize was that I was hurting my family. I was hurting my kids. Why? Because in relationship, I'm impacting those relationships around me. They're in pain. They're hurting. They need me, and I can't see it because I'm so caught in my own pain. I can't see past it. So one day, my 13-year-old daughter was... I can't tell her story. It's her story to tell, so I'm going to be careful what I say. I'll just do it this way. My 13-year-old daughter was trying to commit suicide. And she was doing it through bulimia, or through anorexia, and through self-cutting. And I won't go into all the details. But I'm going to tell you something. I didn't know whether I'd ever come home to my daughter being alive. It looked like she was not going to make it, and there was nothing I could do to help her, I thought. So one day after counseling, she said, "Dad, can we talk?" And I said, "Yeah." So we get out and we sit on the front porch. And she says, "Dad, you know why I want to die?" And I'm thinking, that's a no-brainer question. Yes, I want to know why you want to die. I want to know. And she said, "I've watched you all of my life relate with Mom. And Mom was never enough for you." Now, she'd never seen me consume pornography. She didn't see me have any issue with porn. And yet, here she's coming with the fruit of she said, we're sitting there in a restaurant, and we're talking, we're engaging, we're laughing, and this woman walks by, and you completely leave our presence. You're not even there anymore, and you're looking at this woman, and she said, we'd be sitting there in the car driving down the road, and this woman would walk across the street, and all of a sudden your attention was there, and we no longer existed in the moment. She says, Mom is the most beautiful woman I know, and if Mom's not enough for you, I don't compete. I can't compare to the beauty that Mom is. I'm not anywhere close to as pretty as her. And my greatest fear in life was I'll never be enough for the man I marry. I don't want to live if I'm going to have to live with a man like you've treated your own wife. That's my daughter speaking. I had no clue. And I could say to her, and I mean it with everything I got, she's beautiful. But I could say that with my words, but she saw what got my eyes. She saw what got my attention. And she didn't, because I was not only leaving my wife emotionally when I was looking, I was leaving her. Pain? Yes. The only path from your pain is to work through it. The other is a dead-end street. And many of you already know that. That's a death wish, a slow death wish. Using. And it will kill you eventually. It doesn't matter what the substance is. Facing your pain, facing the wounds that you carry inside is absolutely essential to your health and healing. So one day, my addiction came to an end when I got arrested. My addiction came to an end when the entire world found out what I was doing while I was pastoring. I was a pastor at the time when everything came to its head. And I lost every friendship. I lost everybody that I thought was dear to me because of all that came out in the open. They all wanted to know why I lied to them, why I wasn't truthful, and that I was just using them. I was pretending I was a wolf in sheath clothing. I had all kinds of stuff come out. And I felt like I lost everything. And my thought was, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with church. I want nothing to do with God. And I went back into a hole like you can't even imagine. I was on a death bench. And it was within about a year of that, this guy called me up, and he was the only friend I had left in the world, but he lived 3 hours away, and he didn't know what I was going through. He had no idea, and I didn't tell him. And so he calls me out of the blue and he says, hey, we need to hang out. And I'm going, yeah, no way. I'm going to lose my last friend. And he wouldn't let me off the hook. And finally I said, okay, I agree. So I'm coming down there, I'm driving, I'm going to talk about the Dodgers, I'm going to talk about the weather, I ain't talking about anything serious. And I get in there, and I sit in his office, and he's sitting in front of the door with his desk, and I'm over in a corner. So I'm already feeling trapped. And we're sitting there, and I began to talk, and I couldn't stop. I just went, blah. Right? I just couldn't stop. And I just told him everything. And I can't tell you how long I was there because I hadn't told anybody anything. So this was like my whole life out there. And he gets up and he's walking towards me. And I stand up, my fist clenched, because I don't know what he's going to do. And he comes up and he just gives me this wrestler's hug, and he's got me just like this. And he's not letting go. And he began to weep. And he says, I'm so sorry that I'm so sorry that you've experienced so much pain. There's God wants to restore your world, and I'm here to walk this out with you. In 29 years old, church all of my life, and never tasted that before. And what he gave me was the will to live, because he touched the inner peace that no one got to. That's the real me. And I thought all this debris, all the stuff, all my struggles, all the wounding, I thought that was me. I thought I was a scumbag. I thought I was no good. What he did was he kind of pushed all that aside, and he embraced the true me, the one that was created for a purpose, the one that was created to do something in life and have impact. He touched that innocent little boy that got sexually abused at 6 and didn't know how to make sense of the world he was in. And in that embrace, He broke something in me. It changed something in me. I don't know how to put words to it, but I knew from that moment there was something put in me that said, I can do something about this. I can change. It wasn't overnight. Good grief. It's taken years to figure out how to get out of this hole. And it's been hard. I've fallen on my face. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen. But I've gotten back up, I put my face to it, and I did it again. I've done it again, and I've done it again until I figured out how to get healthy and how to get whole. And I'm telling you here today, what I've learned is if we don't address our wounds, if we don't face the patterns, and we don't look at the needs that we're not getting met, you're not going to break it. If I could let my 40 years, 30-some years of struggle help you in yours, hear this. Face this stuff. Don't run anymore.
Woo! Yeah.
Amen. It's not easy. But I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people have misunderstood the addict. They've said they're weak, or they said that they're complacent, or that they're lazy, or they're just not really serious about recovery. I'll tell you something. The addict is probably the strongest person I know because they've fallen on their face countless times and they still stand up with their face and try again. They're still trying to get it. It takes a heck of a lot of courage and it takes a heck of a lot of strength to actually take on something that's destroying your very being. There is hope. So I want to wrap us up. I just went a whole different direction, Pastor. Hope that's all right. You're going to spank me, do it later, okay? I want you to bow your heads. I want you to take an image. I want you to put in your mind. I want in some way to visualize the cross in any way you can. There's no right or wrong way of doing that. But if you can visualize Jesus on the cross, I want you to see that. I want you to taste that. I want you to understand that. In your own mind's eye, see. Can you see Jesus there? And when you get there, when you actually have Him in your mind, can you see someone who's there to hurt you? Can you see that there is someone there who wants to reject you? Do you see somebody there who says you don't matter? No. What do you see? There's scars in those hands. There's scars in those feet. There's stripes on that back. Every one of those things were to purchase your freedom. Every one of those wounds were to restore your health and to bring healing and restoration. And every one of those things say, with his arms wide open, saying, I love you. There's not one thing that you have gone through, not one pain, not one wound, not one struggle, not one thing you've done is beyond the cross. Jesus purchased it all for your redemption. Just know that redemption is a process. It's not a quick fix. There's no quick movement. There's no magic pill. That's part of the addictive thinking. It's all a part of God healing us layer by layer by layer and freeing us layer by layer by layer. Psalm 69:33 says this, that the Lord sees the needy. The Lord, you know what? I don't want to misquote this, and somehow I'm getting my elder speaking to me right now. My 62 years old is getting in the way. Hang on a second here. I want you to hear this because it's so powerful. Hold tight. The Lord hears the needy and does not despise those of His who are prisoners. He sees us as needs. He sees us in a place of need. He sees us as a prisoner. He sees us struggling. But He does not despise us. He doesn't see us as bad. He actually understands the needs driving it. When my oldest son took his first step, he fell flat on his face. And I, as a father, reached down and I picked him up and I dusted him off and I said, "It's okay, son. Let's go at it again." The father's heart is to see his son take his first steps and to help along as he learns how to walk. You have taken your first steps towards recovery and steps and healing, and you're falling on your face. The father reaches down aggressively to pick you up and dust you off and say, "It's okay, daughter. It's okay, son. I don't despise you. I see the need. You're just trying to learn how to walk. You're just trying to be healthy. I'm here. Let's walk this out." Hear the father's heart towards your wounds. And I ask Jesus that you would wrap your son and your daughters up, and that you would bring healing and restoration and freedom. In the name of Jesus. Amen.